The world's thinnest folding smartphone, the Find N5. I assume we've already found 1, 2, 3, and 4, so Find N5 is just what sequentially comes next. And trust you me, if there's a 5 in here somewhere, we'll be the ones who are finding it. Right off the bat, contrary to other reviews of this phone, I'm not seeing anything abnormally eye-catching. Yeah, it's the thinnest book-style folding phone in the world, but competing for tenths of a millimeter doesn't really move my meter all that much. Oppo does say they have a new microcrystalline glass, with a 10% increase in crystallinity. Having a more crystalline glass should increase the hardness and the density, but as we're seeing from the scratches at a level 2 and the deeper grooves at a level 3, we have indeed been bamboozled by the included plastic screen protector. With that all removed though, as we step up through the Mohs scale of hardness, we can see that the more crystalline glass is still glass, and scratches at a level 6 with deeper grooves at a level 7. Nothing too crazy so far. I'm told the center hinge has some titanium in it though, which is pretty dope. But as far as regular materials go, the Find N5 appears to be made with a very similar construction to the other folding phones on the market, like OnePlus or Samsung. The center screen still scratches at a super soft plastic Mohs 2, and again fingernails can permanently indent the surface. Oppo does say there are dual layers of anti-impact films on here, so it might be more drop resistant, but that's not something we're going to be checking on today. Let me know in the comments though if a scientific drop test is something you'd want to see included. The frame rails of the Find N5 are incredibly thin. Made from a 7000 series aluminum, this should help with the rigidity of the phone during the bin test. The metal buttons are not removable. Take note of that, Samsung. We also have the mute switch, which transitions the phone between silent, vibrate, and normal. I like that button. The top has our stereo loudspeaker holes, and it'll be cool to see how thin the speakers are on the inside. The spine is apparently made from steel and titanium components. I'm guessing this exterior portion is the 3D printed titanium. At the bottom, we have our 80-watt USB-C port, which is wildly thin, as well as another stereo speaker, which, again, is wildly thin. The removable dual SIM card tray does have a red rubber ring. This phone has multiple water ingress protection ratings like IPX6, X8, and X9, which is impressive. But that X means that there is no dust protection, and we will of course be testing that here in a minute, since protection is always a good thing. The cameras are kind of fun. Textured glass ridges circle each of the camera modules. We have a 50 megapixel telephoto camera on the top left. There's an 8 megapixel ultra wide camera on the top right, and the bottom left is a 50 megapixel normal camera. There's also a dual tone LED flash on the bottom right, which we haven't seen in a while. Most smartphone cameras these days have just single tone flashes. However, while there is glass protecting the outer cameras, the inner 8 megapixel camera is only protected with the soft clear plastic screen on the inside, which with one scratch immediately makes the camera blurry. Not something to fret over, of course, just something to be aware of. Like I said, protection is always a good thing, which brings me to some of the issues on my own phone that I've been having lately. One thing I've been having a problem with on my own personal phone is spam calls and spam texts, but I found a solution to the issue with today's sponsor, Incogni. See, it's kind of lame, but when you give your information to a legitimate company online, that company can sell your information to other groups that then use your phone number for telemarketing, expiring car insurance, or lately, those toll road texting scams. But luckily for me, and luckily for you, Incogni has created a database of all these slimy information resellers and can automatically go through and remove your information for you. For example, Incogni saved me personally about 200 hours worth of work if I were to go through and try to do it all myself. The whole process was automatic, took me less than 10 minutes, and I saved over 200 hours worth of work. Very worth it. You can try Incogni risk-free for 30 days with a link in the description, and you also get 60% off of the annual plan, which I highly recommend because scammers are going to keep on scamming. And the only way to stop the robots from calling is to also have robots on the defense. There's also a plan where you can add your parents or grandparents and keep up to 4 people protected all at the same time. Incogni.com/JerryRig, and thanks to Incogni for sponsoring this video. Now where was I? Ah yes, the back panel. My Find N5 is called Dusk Purple and has a leathery back panel, which does not make for an excellent medium for drawing unfortunately, but Art Class with Jerry does show its scratch resilience pretty well. I do like that the back panel won't ever crack or shatter when dropped. Zooming into our Nightmare Barney, you can sleep pretty well knowing that the panel will always remain intact. Or maybe you won't ever sleep again. Hard to say for sure. The shiny Oppo branding looks to be inlaid, but after some prying, it's refreshing to know that the logo is permanent enough that it'll never fall out on its own. Flipping the phone back to the open middle screen, which is 8.1 inches diagonal, 10-bit, basically square, with a 120 Hz refresh rate at 2100 nits, it lasts for about 10 seconds before going black and not recovering, as OLED panels sometimes do. The exterior screen is the same 10-bit 120 Hz AMOLED display, but just at 6.6 inches, and obviously protected by glass, which helps dissipate the temperature a little bit, getting us to 20 seconds with just a minor yet still permanent blemish on the front screen. But like, not all of us are firefighters running through burning buildings every day, so flame isn't something we have to get used to, but everyone watching this probably lives on planet Earth, which makes Earth something that your folding smartphone will come in contact with on a semi-regular basis. Whether sand at the beach, dust from a trail, dirt from work, or just grime the phone picks up over time. With dust on the inner screen, there doesn't appear to be much issue. The hinge isn't overtly grinding or catching. However, when the dust catches on the titanium hinge itself, it's pretty easy to tell that some of the gears are grinding. But nothing's permanently broken yet. If you're the owner of a folding phone, definitely take the dust situation seriously and keep dirt away from the hinge. Something I've noticed over the course of my career is that the thinner something is, the more likely and easier it is to break. And while the Oppo Find N5 has held up pretty well to everything it's experienced so far, it's kinda sad and a little disappointing that on the very first horizontal bend, while closed, it receives its first mortal wound. Where the OnePlus Fold and Samsung Folds and the Flip and even the Google Fold all survived, the Find N5 does not. Not only is there a dead line of pixels at that center crease, but also a horizontal line of dead pixels halfway down the right side, which is rather unfortunate, since from a normal backwards bend while open, the hinge itself is actually impressively still intact. The Find N5 is incredibly strong along the axis it's supposed to bend in, but very weak along the axis that it's not designed to bend in, which is still important to know since accidental damage doesn't always conform to the manufacturer's recommendations. The Oppo Find N5 is now dead on the inside, aren't we all? The outside screen, however, still appears to function like normal, even though the inner screen is demolished by that bending. This exterior display does allow us to use the entire phone like normal though, so no information has been lost. However, a lot of the technological improvements on the world's thinnest folding smartphone will never be seen from the exterior, so it's time to take our exploration to the interior levels. The watertight plastic border of the inner screen can be removed, and then the screen itself can start to pull away. I'm not really seeing the dual impact layers though. The pixels and the UTG or ultra-thin glass layers are right behind the top permanent clear plastic layer. It's cool to see that on the back side of the flexible screen is a metal panel, which I assume is to help it with durability, since as we know, if the phone creases along more than one axis at a time, it kicks the bucket. The metal backplate and rigid hinge were attempting to constrain that bending to one plane, but obviously that didn't work out too good, even with all these extra supports behind the screen. With the center large flexible inner display gone, we still don't have access to any of the internal hardware, so I'll take my JerryRig knife and slice away the dust purple back panel. It's kinda nice not working with glass for once. And even now, with the back panel gone, the phone is still on and functioning. I'll turn it off though, since it probably won't like what's gonna happen next. Each half of the folding phone is kind of like a phone all by itself, with a battery and circuit boards residing in both halves. With the ultra-thin front screen removed, we can unplug it from the motherboard, just like a little Lego, and take out the 31 screws around the left side of the Find N5. There is a number 5 here on this ribbon cable, so I think we found it. Thumbs up for that. Over on the other side, with the main motherboard and camera units, we have another 30 screws, all of which need to come out if we're going to explore that hinge. There's a super small vibration module on the bottom left side, and the circular camera plastic lens can come away, with an impressive 50-watt wireless charging coil. I'll pop off a few more of the long ribbon cables. It's interesting to see that when we get to the 80-watt USB-C port, it looks like it's missing something. In order to get the phone as thin as it is, Oppo had to remove the USB-C port's protective housing, and actually use the aluminum phone frame as the female end of the plug. Very creative, and it actually makes a lot of sense. Definitely requires a bit more precision on the frame manufacturing end of things, but I don't see any problem with it. The microphone holes all have their waterproofing membranes over their inner openings, and as we move over to the batteries, these are the silicon carbon batteries that we first saw in the OnePlus 13. Incredibly thin, but still extremely energy dense. Both batteries are permanently glued into the housing though, probably because magic pull tabs are too thick. I'll allow for glue this one time though, since it is a novelty phone with state-of-the-art construction. There's a total of 5,600 mAh worth of juice in here. As we get over to the cameras, the 8-megapixel wide-angle camera does not have OIS. The 50-megapixel telephoto supposedly has internal OIS, and the main 50-megapixel camera does have 2-axis optical image stabilization. I also really like the blue gasket over the ribbon cable plugs. Always nice to see a splash of color inside these phones. I'll remove the dual SIM card tray slot, as well as the lower stereo loudspeaker. And surprisingly, even with how thin this speaker is, it still has balls inside. Speakers need to move air around in order to work, so this guy is longer and flatter than we normally see, but still should be comparable in sound quality to a regular brick phone style speaker, since the volume is similar. Another major innovation Oppo dropped on us is a quad-stacked motherboard. The whole thing is not quad-stacked, mind you, just a small portion. Not only are the dual PCBs stacked on top of each other, but there are circuits and components on both sides of both stacks. It really is some very dense circuitry. Only the main motherboard has the quad stack though, the secondary daughter board is still single-sided. Finally, the hinge. This is the culprit that wasn't strong enough to keep the phone from flexing while closed. There are a few more screws holding the 3D printed titanium cap to the internal steel gears, and granted, right, if you're nice to your phone, Oppo says it should survive more than 100 folds a day for 6 years, or like 216,000 folds. But people subscribe here to see what happens in these outlier cases. The steel gears and hinges do look similar to what we find in other folding smartphones. I think the bad move here was having the 3D printed titanium spine. Milled titanium might have been slightly stronger, or even switching to a thicker steel could have made it ever so slightly more durable, and the Find N5 might have survived. Don't forget to get your 60% discount on the annual subscription of Incogni, and thanks a ton for watching. I'll see you around.